So welcome to my channel once again. My name is Kende Olofitui, and I'll be showing you how to land your first job role in service desk. So if you are looking at starting a job role in service desk, or you are looking at moving from one department, let's say one department to the other, or you're from your current role to a higher level now, and of course you have to go through an interview every time you try to change these roles. So I'll be showing you most 37 most common questions, interview questions that you would likely come across in your interview. So if you're able to answer these questions correctly, then chances are that you have landed yourself a job already. Yeah. So if this is your first time getting across this channel, just hit the subscribe button so that you can get more of this content whenever I drop it. So I'll go straight to the point. When you Whenever you go for an interview, there are focus areas that questions will come out from. So I'm dealing with those focus areas at first, then I will jump into the interview questions. And I won't only give you the interview questions, but also provide a tip for you to answer those questions. So let's get into the video. So the first part you will get into is the technical part, technical skills and troubleshooting. So what is required from you under this section? They want to test your knowledge of IT systems, tools, and platforms. For example, your knowledge of Active Directory and Microsoft 365. They also want to test your ability to diagnose and resolve hardware and software issues. And finally, they want to check how familiar you are with these issues. Right? So questions will come from this technical and troubleshooting aspect. The next focus area would be customer service and communication. Of course, you'll be doing a lot of communication when you work with service execs. So at this section, they want to check if you're able to demonstrate clear and professional communication with user. They want to check if you've got that term they call active listening skills to understand users' issues, right? And they also want to check your ability to handle difficult or frustrated customers with empathy. So these are another focus area. Then the third focus area would be IT processes and incident management. Of course, you know IT is information technology infrastructure library, right? So they want to check your knowledge, your understanding of incident, problem, and change management. And they also want to check familiarity with the service level agreement, what they call SLA, and escalation protocols. Yeah. So also they'll be checking, prioritizing, and categorizing tickets effectively. All these processes fall under the ITIL and the ITIL framework. So they want to check how familiar and how you're able to apply this framework. Then the next one is behavioral and situational competencies. Most time they would be more of situation based questions, yeah, that will come from here. Or there's this other name I'm looking for, but there'll be more of so there'll be more of situation based questions or scenario. Yeah, that's the word. There'll be more of scenario based questions, right? So where they will ask you if something happens, how are you able to approach it and how do you resolve it? So under this section, they will expect you to use the STAR method to answer experience-based questions. And they would also expect you to demonstrate problem-solving skills with real-life scenarios. And also, under this section, you should be showcasing your ability, showcasing your adaptability and teamwork. And the final session would be company research and alignment. It's the most time before you go into a company to apply, you have to do a little bit of research into the company, their core values, their vision, what they do, what they're currently working on, and why are they recruiting for that position. Yeah. So under this section, they will expect the applicant to understand the company's industry, the services, and the clientele. They would also expect you to demonstrate knowledge of the recent company's projects, award, or initiatives. They also want to test how you align your answers with the organization's goals and culture. And finally, they want you to mention how your skills and experience fit into the company's vision. So if you are able to, most interview questions cover these five focus areas. So if you are able to walk through this process, you land yourself a job. Now let's move straight into the 37 most common interview questions. I've creatively curated these questions. I'm not saying that when you go for an interview, they will ask you 37 questions. No, but from different sources, I've been able to curate the most common service desk interview questions just for you to learn and prepare yourself. So let's go into it. The first one is, can you describe your experience with Active Directory? Of course, there's no way you work in service desk that you would not embed Active Directory into your daily routine, right? It's like a tool you use daily. So when they ask this kind of questions, what's the tip? They want you to mention specific tasks that you've performed, such as users account management, password reset, group policy changes, and security permission. So, for instance, I've managed a user account, applied group policies, and troubleshoot login issues using Active Directory, right? So you can take out your time, extract these questions, use some online tools to find suitable answers to them, right? So let's move to the next one. How would you troubleshoot a user unable to access their email? So there's this user that is unable to access their email. How would you troubleshoot it? Now, what is the tip? They want you to demonstrate a logical troubleshooting process, right? Check credentials, mailbox status, server issues, and connectivity. So you don't just jump into somebody that is not able to access their email. You don't just jump into it and fix the error for them. There are logics behind it, there are security checks, there are protocols, there are things you need to do. So whenever you ask these questions, they want to test how you are able to follow compliance before you undertake this task. So for example, I would verify their credentials, check for server issues, review their email box settings and text connectivity. Yours could be quite different, but then this is just a tip that guides you into answering your questions. So I move on to the third one. Explain the difference between a static and dynamic IP address. Like I used to say, you can still go on to read more about IP address. That's not an internet protocol. Read about the difference, the static and the dynamic. But this is the tip I want to give. Keep it simple. Static means fixed. Dynamic means assigned by DHCP. So explain when each is used. For example, a static IP is permanent, ideal for servers, while dynamic IPs are temporary, commonly used for regular users. Yeah. So do a little study about this, understand when this is applied, and then when you ask these questions, you can give a perfect answer for this. I'll move on to the fourth one. What remote desktop tools have you used and how do they work? You see, when you work in the service desk, you would be using a lot of remote desktop. There will be times when you need to remotely connect to your user to help them resolve one issue or the other. So when they ask you this kind of question, this is a tip. They want you to mention specific tools that you have used in the past, such as TeamViewer, NADEX, that's remote desktop, which is called RDP, and then briefly explain their function. Maybe touch a difference in one of the features. And yeah, so for example, I've used the TeamViewer and RDP to remotely troubleshoot and resolve users' issues securely and efficiently, right? There's another question that comes up which says, how would you handle a situation where a user cannot connect to VPN? Yes. When you work in the service desk, especially in a large company, you have to provide VPN to users to work remotely. As users are not working on site, maybe working out of your office location or working in another country, you would have to provide a VPN for them to access the resources of the company. So this question is saying, how would you handle a situation where a user is not able to connect to VPN? Depending on the type of VPN they use and the protocol which it is set up. But then again, it is expected that you must be familiar with the VPN, or you must have used the VPN in the past, and then you know exactly how to connect it. So whenever a user is calling to say they are not able to connect, you have some checklist of questions you need to ask them to be able to know at what point do they have issues. So the tip here is outline a step-by-step process. Check credentials, network setting, and firewall rules. So this may be quite different based on whichever VPN that is used and how it is set up. So this is just an idea for you to answer those questions. So for instance, I verify credentials, confirm network connectivity, check VPN settings, and review firewall rules. Yeah. Okay, let me take a coffee break, please. Yeah, let's take it further to the sixth question, which says, what step would you take to resolve a slow network issue? If you've got a slow network issue, what step would you take to resolve this issue? Number one, demonstrate problem solving skills, check bandwidth, devices, and potential network congestion. Right? So, example, I would run a speed test, identify bandwidth, heavy apps, and monitor for latency issues. Yeah, I do a little more research. A lot of things can cause network issue. So, but then again, you need to. It could be. It could be like I used to say. It could be different based on what the situation is. Sometimes your company can provide you a laptop, and sometimes you can use your personal laptop. The approach you would use when you are using your personal laptop is quite different from a device that your company has provided for you. So do a little research and then focus on how you would approach this issue. So I move to the seventh one. How do you troubleshoot a printer that won't print? Of course, in every company, you would have a printer that's been set up over the network that anyone can be added to that same printer and they can print provided they have it has been added to their profile. So how would you troubleshoot a printer that won't print? So this is a tip here. Mention common issues. Why won't a printer print? You need to, throw up some questions that trigger an idea for solution, right? So mention common issues like it could be paper jam, it could be driver conflicts, it could be network disconnection. So if you are asked these questions, you should have a checklist of questions that you can ask your users to have an idea of what's next to do, right? So for example, I'll check for paper jams, I'll restart the spooler service and verify the printer's network status. You could have your different approach based on whatever experience you've had in the past, but then watch out for these questions. Yeah, let's move to the next one. Explain the difference between a DNS and DHCP server. Of course, you'll be dealing with server a lot. You'll be logging into a server, especially when you have been made an admin to override other users' account. You'll be helping them get into the server. Sometimes they will have issues with their servers. You would have the admin right to take them off server and let them get back to another server. So when you ask this kind of questions, what you need to do, the tip here is clearly define each, which is DNS resolves name to IP and DHCP assign IPs. You can read more on this, just do a little research on this, understand them and know how to state the difference. An example could be DNS translates domain names into IP addresses, while DHCP assigns IP automatically. So I'll move to the next one. How do you diagnose and resolve BSOD? That's blue screen of death errors. Blue screen of death errors. It's called BSOD. How do you resolve it? Number one, mention analyzing stop codes, checking hardware, and reviewing logs. If you check online, if you check on YouTube, there are several ways, there are several videos that shows how you can actually resolve blue screen of death. So it's not like there's no one way, depending on how the situation is. So, but what you are expected there is to provide like a guide to a way you would approach when this happens. What do you check? What's the first thing you do? How do you go about it? So, for example, I would note the stop code boot in save mode, check drivers, and review event log. Yeah. So I move to the next one. Describe your experience with Microsoft 365 and its admin center. Yeah, also, if you work in service desk, there's no way you can avoid Microsoft 365. Yeah, especially if you use Microsoft in your organization. So, describe your experience. When they say describe your experience, what do they mean? So, this is the tip. They want you to highlight specific tasks that you can do with Microsoft 365, which comes with user management, email configuration, security settings, right? There are more to this, but they want you to see how you've interacted with Microsoft 365 and its admin center in the past, right? So, for instance, have managed users, configure security settings, and troubleshoot mail issues in Microsoft 365 admin center. Yeah, read more on it and give it a try. Number 11, how do you handle a frustrated customer with an unresolved issue? When you work in service desk, people don't call you when they don't have issues, right? So if you receive any call, any ticket, any email, whatever form they get to you, it is because there is an issue a user is facing and they want you to jump on it and resolve it. So the question says, how would you now handle a frustrated customers? Some may have tried it on their own and they are quite frustrated, or some they may have to attend to a lot of people that are waiting on their neck and they are not able to, access the system to use. Now, it is more like a transferred aggression. Aggression is being transferred to them. They want to call you to say, hey, fix this thing, whatever magic you want to do, just fix this thing. So, how would you handle a frustrated customer with an unresolved issue? The tip is showcase empathy, patience, and solution focused communication, right? So, for example, I'd listen calmly, empathize, assure them of a solution, and keep them updated regularly. Even if you are not able to instantly remotely connect to them and resolve their issue, you need to show them you care, show them you feel what they feel, show them you share out of their frustration, and then calm them down so you can quickly look out for solution for them. And if you're not able to provide that solution, what do? You escalate and let them know you are escalating and you're keeping in touch with them throughout the process that this will be resolved, right? So that's an example. You can read further and then create a scenario where what you did, how you approached it, how we ended well, right? So give an example of a time when you delivered an excellent customer service. Yeah. It's no doubt that your customer service skills will always be required, especially when you work in IT service desk. So give an example where you have delivered an excellent customer service. This is the tip here. They want you to use the STAR method. There's a method that is called the STAR method: the situation, the task, action, and the result. So when have you delivered an excellent customer service? What was the situation like? What was the task that was done? What action did you take? And what result did you get? So, for example, a user lost access to critical files. I quickly restore them, preventing downtime and earning positive feedback. Yeah. So yours could be different, but then whenever you have these questions, it's best to use the STAR method to create a scenario and answer them. I move on to question 13. How do you prioritize multiple support tickets from different users? Yeah, there's one common thing in service desk. Whenever every user call you, they want you to mark their ticket as priority. Everybody feels like mine is important. Any other person calls in and they say mine is important. Everybody that calls you wants you to prioritize that ticket or their request. So now, how do you prioritize multiple support requests from different users? What are they trying to get from you whenever this question is being thrown at you? Number one, the tip is mention using SLA. That's some keywords you should mention when answering this, which is SLA, service level agreement, ticket severity, and business impact. So some tickets could be priority one, some could be priority two, some could be priority three. So they want you to be able to identify what priority has this ticket got, and then be able to follow the SLA, service level agreement, in your company to approach multiple support tickets, right? So for example, I prioritize based on SLA deadlines, take impact and ticket impact, sorry, and urgency, right? Yeah. So that's it. 14, explain how you communicate technical issues to non-technical users. Yes, you would. You are an IT service externalist. You may be supporting someone that is like, let's say, clinical staff, and how they do is perform operation, or they are very. The fact that I used to say this, the fact that they do not know how to use the computer, they are not savvy. Let me put it that way. The fact that they are not savvy with the use of computer does not mean they don't know anything, right? If they take you, for example, if they are clinical staff and they take you to the lab to perform an operation as an IT person, I'm sure when you get to the lab, you will run out of there, which means you may not be able to do one of their tasks, right? Which doesn't make you who doesn't who doesn't send the who does not mean that you two do not know anything. So, but we work together just to make sure our end users are happy. So when they ask you, explain how you communicated technical issues to non-technical users. So when they take non-technical users, they mean like your clinical staff that are not very savvy when it comes to technical IT terms. So you are there to explain to them in a way they can understand, right? So when they ask you this question, they are trying to tax two things. So this is the tip. They want you to demonstrate clarity and simplicity, and they want you to avoid jargons. So I could give an example. I simplify complex terms into clear, actionable step using non-technical language. So when you're talking with the user and you know this user is not technical, and you're saying your RAM is filled up, so what we need to do is we need to check your IP address and then get onto your Active Directory, and then we run, hey, the user just look overloaded already. So your role as a technical person is not just to understand these technical terms, but to be able to explain these technical terms to a non-technical user in a very simple way that both of you can understand. Yeah. So watch out for these questions here. It comes up like 10 over 10. So 15, how do you maintain professionalism when dealing with a difficult customer? How do you maintain professionalism when dealing with a difficult customer? All these questions are more like scenario-based questions. Like if this happens in this time, how would you approach it? So the tip is highlight calmness, empathy, and resolution focus. Yeah. For example, I remain calm, actively listen, and focus on finding a solution. Yeah. So you can decide to create a scenario where you have faced this problem, and remember using the STAR method, how you were able to navigate and then find a solution to it. And always remember, it does not mean you would always solve the problem at every time. Does not mean every time you encounter a problem, you would always solve it. What it just means is that every time you encounter a problem, um, you are in a process of solving it. Even if you're unable to solve it immediately, there's a room for escalation. You can escalate it to your second line team, to your third line team, or the appropriate team that should work on it. But then you are carrying the customer along and you're stating what you would do, what you have done, the limits of your support, and how you have escalated it to the right team. Then you can encourage them on how you will ensure to follow it up with those teams. Because sometimes your customers will not have the ability to integrate with the team that you've escalated to. So they still rely on you as the first line to be able to help them through, right? So 16, tell me about the time when you went above and beyond for a customer. Ooh. So these questions come, frequently. Frequently. Tell me a time when you went above and beyond for a customer. When you hear questions that starts with tell me a time, they are categorized under scenario-based question. So what do they want you to do? Remember the STAR method, the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So you have to use that to create a situation and emphasize on how the situation led to a positive outcome. This gives you higher chances, right? So example, I worked after hours to recover critical data, minimizing the client's downtime. Yours could be different, but then make sure you keep those keywords intact. Yeah, 17. How do you manage customers' expectation regarding resolution time? Like I used to say, a lot of customers are putting tickets. Everyone want to state, they want you to state that their ticket is actually very urgent and they need to be dealt with immediately. So how do you manage this expectation? Yeah. So when you have this question, this is a tip. They want you to demonstrate clear communication and transparency. There's no point telling a customer that their issues will be resolved right now when you know that it may not be resolved in the next 3 hours. So it's best to explain to them if there is a process to that resolution that will take a longer time than expected. Sometimes SLA could be 5 days. Whenever XLA for a particular ticket is 5 days, there's no point telling the customer you get it done in 1 hour, especially when you know there are other priorities that are taking those times. So, for instance, I explain SLA timelines clearly and provide realistic updates. Yeah. Yeah. Just a break, please. So I move to 18. Trust me, we're getting to the end of these questions in jiffy, right? How would you, sorry, what would you do if you couldn't resolve a customer's issue on your own? Yes, customers will call you. You are the first point of contact. They will call you. They'll call you. They will explain their concerns. You will remotely connect to them. You try to fix. You try to troubleshoot. So that happens. Sometimes you fix it immediately. Sometimes within the first 5 minutes it's done. Sometimes it's even within the first 2 minutes it's done. Sometimes within the first 5 minutes it's done. Sometimes it takes more time, but then at times you are not able to resolve this issue on your own. So whenever this happens, or whenever you get a question like this, what are they trying to find out? The interviewer, what are they trying to get? So the tip is they want you to show willingness to escalate and collaborate. See, when you work in service desk, you are not almighty. Like you're not, as a matter of fact, there's nothing that guarantees that you are able to resolve all problems that comes. So they need to test your team spirit and your ability to work together as a team and escalate. Yeah, and in fact, the word is collaborate. Sometimes you may not be able to answer a specific question, but you look to your left, you see your colleague, you ask your colleague, they tell you, they just give you a tip of what to do, and you jump back to your system, you apply it, and you fix it. So sometimes it's not more about I don't know these things and I don't want to ask anybody. I want to fix it myself. Sometimes it's not what you've got permission to do within your first line level. So you would need to escalate to second line and then try to follow up. So whenever a question like this come, it's just testing your willingness to escalate and collaborate. For example, I escalate relevant in while keeping the customer informed. Like I used to say, these are just like short answers that gives you like a guide on what to touch. So you can read up and then elaborate in your own way. So let's move to 19. What is ITIL and why is it important in a service desk role? I used to say ITIL is information technology infrastructure library. It's a framework that is used for service delivery. So you need to know about that, learn. In fact, there's a certification on ITIL. I would advise you go for that certification. It gives you deep in depth on how the service delivery works, right? So it's a framework that is used for service delivery. So whenever this question is asked, what they want to do is they want you to briefly explain IT principles and benefits. So if you understand this, dive into it, explain it, list the benefits, then you have killed the question. So example, IT standardizes processes, ensuring consistent delivery, service delivery, and improving efficiency. There's more to this. You can just read up and then give it a go. I'll move to number 20. Can you explain the difference between incident and problem management? So this is other IT. If you've studied IT very well, you'll be able to state this clearly beyond what I'll just give you here. So, but the tip here is they want you to define incident as a single issue, something that just happened that disrupted a particular ongoing process. It's just a single issue that's happened. It's called an incident. But problem becomes a problem when it happens continuously, and then they would need to now do a root cause analysis to say we've been experiencing this and it's been impacting our company frequently. So we need to look into this to say what is happening, what causes this, and how can we avoid this, right? So whenever a question like this thrown at you, they want you to clearly state the difference between something that happened at once, just a one-time event, and a continuous concurrent event, right? So example, incidents are resolved individually, problems identify root causes to prevent reoccurrence, right? Let's move to 21. How do you prioritize incidents in accordance with SLA? SLA means service level agreement. So for every company, for every situation, for every task, there will be a service level agreement. So how do you prioritize this? So they also want you to demonstrate your knowledge of SLA. Yeah, knowledge of SLA. So demonstrate SLA knowledge, prioritize based on impact, urgency, and severity. So I just mentioned about P1, P2, P3. So once there is a P1, you know, you suspend every other thing, you go for P1 until that is resolved. Once there's a P2, you suspend every P3, you go for every P2. And then if there's no P1, there's no P2, then you come back to P3 and you are able to walk around it to resolve it. Yeah. So for example, I prioritize incidents by assessing their impact on business operation and adhering to SLA timelines to meet service expectation. Yep, I move to the next one. 22, explain the concept of escalation and when would you use it? So whenever this question is asked, what they want to know is how your experience in the past and how you have reacted when there are situations like this, right? So you need to learn about escalations, learn about when do you escalate, what are the situations that you get into and you're sure you'd escalate. So whenever a question like this comes up, they want you to show your understanding in escalation protocol and when they are necessary. So for example, I escalate incident when they exceed SLA threshold or they require higher level expertise or need managerial intervention. Yeah. So there's some situation that comes and well, it arrives to your table, but you know quite all right that this is beyond your decision. So you have to move it to a higher decision maker, which could be your team lead and in some cases your manager. Right. So you need to state if you have an example, you can state that example and how you successfully escalated this. So let's move to number 23. So what's the purpose of a knowledge base in incident management? So if you're familiar with service there, they call it KB, 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 KB. That's knowledge base. So what is this purpose? So you need to really learn about knowledge base. It just gives an idea to do a study on what knowledge base is. Because if you don't know what knowledge base is, you won't know the purpose in incident management. So whenever this question comes up, what they are looking out for is emphasize efficiency, consistency, and knowledge sharing. Yeah. So a knowledge base streamlines issue resolution by providing standardized solution, reducing downtime, and ensuring consistency. So sometimes if you are stuck in helping a user, all you need to do is jump to the knowledge base, check with the keywords of that issue, and then you'll be able to see the last resolution that was provided, and then pick it from there and apply it to the task, right? So I move to the 24th one. How do you handle a ticket that has breached SLA timeline? So like I used to say, there are timelines for tickets, which is called SLA. So whenever, for instance, if a ticket is supposed to be resolved within the first 5 days and you are not able to resolve it within the first 5 days, whatever ticketing system you use will mark that particular ticket to have exceeded the SLA, that's the service level agreement. So such ticket has breached the SLA. So this question is saying, how do you handle a ticket that has breached the SLA? So the tip here is you want it to show accountability and proactive problem solving. So if you have an issue that you are not able to handle, rather leave that request or ticket in your queue till it bridges the SLA. What you need to do is immediately escalate the issue, notify the stakeholder, and collaborate with relevant teams to expedite the solution. And there are some times that tickets actually stay and they bridge the SLA. You don't have to keep it with yourself. You need to talk to your team lead, talk to your manager, or seek advice from other teams, relevant teams that are able to provide solution to that request. I'll move on to 25. Before I take 25, you can see clearly that I've created these questions. If you're able to sit down, work on it, trust me, you have a job already. So describe a time you improved the incident resolution process. Describe a time when you improved the incident resolution process. When they give you a question that says describe a time, what it suggests is scenario based answer. This is a scenario based question. They want a scenario based answer. So whenever you come across scenario based questions, the best approach is to use the star format to explain the improvements and the outcome. A time when you improve the incident resolution process. Okay, there's a way they resolve an incident. Then there was a time it got into your queue and you were able to provide an improved way to resolving that, right? So you create a scenario, you explain how you're able to improve on the maybe existing resolution process, right? For example, I introduced a preemptive knowledge based article for your current incident, reducing the resolution time by 40%. Whenever it's a scenario based question, it does not mean one way is right. It's just your ability to be able to create, to be able to explain the situation, the task, the action, and the result you get from it, right? So I move to 26. Describe a time when you successfully resolve a complex IT issue. Yeah. Scenario based, use the star format, focus on the result. Examples, I resolved a recurring network issue, improving the uptime by 30%, right? You should be familiar with this already. I move to 27. How do you handle pressure when dealing with multiple IT tickets? Yes, yes. So when you work in IT, sometimes if you are not able to manage your timing correctly, you'll be on pressure. Like you have tickets to do, you have emails to clear, you have calls to pick, you have working to do, and before you know it, you have a lot on your desk. And now the question is, how do you handle pressure when dealing with multiple IT issues? What do they want you to do, or what do they want you to, what are they trying to test when they ask you this question? They want you to show your organization skills and prioritizing skills. How are you able to If you have a lot of things in your queue, how are you able to arrange how you deal with them? How organized are you? Then how are you able to prioritize which one needs more attention? Because the idea is, if you have a ticket that needs more attention in your queue and you pay attention to other ticket, that particular ticket may be escalated and somebody will call from somewhere. For example, a user's account is locked while working and the request is in your queue and the person needs to get on to work, but it is locked. So, and you have that in your queue and you are focusing on some other request, like some other requests that are like P3 or that can be dealt with later. So somebody that the account is locked would reach out to somebody, escalate that particular ticket because they need to jump back to work. And of course, your manager would look for that account and find out that you have an account unlocked ticket in your queue, which you should have dealt with within the first hour that it comes to your queue, you know. So whenever this question is asked, it's just to test how you are able to prioritize and organize yourself. So an example, I prioritize by impact, delegate when needed, and manage time effectively. Tell me more about a time when you worked collaboratively with other IT teams. Yes, in service desks, you don't do the work alone. You work with other teams. You are regarded as first line. You could have second line, third line, and sometimes you have the applications team. Sometimes you have the infrastructure team. Sometimes you have the security team. So you are requested to show teamwork and cross-functional collaboration. Your ability to, discuss with one team and the other to provide a lasting solution for the user is very important. So this is what they test whenever they ask you this kind of question. So an example is I collaborated with the network team to resolve a VPN connectivity issue, ensuring minimal downtime for remote staff. Yep. 29, how do you stay calm when dealing with demanding customers? The customer will tell you, I want this. Before you finish that, they will tell you, I want that also. While you are that, they will tell you, I want you to also help me fix those. While you're working with those, they keep on demanding a lot of things. So, how do you stay calm with demanding customers? Sometimes highlight empathy and conflict resolution skills. So an example is I remain calm, actively listen to their concerns, and assure them that I'm committed to resolving these issues. Sometimes when you have a customer like that brings a lot of issues, all you need to do most times is just to create one single ticket and state all their concerns on the ticket, and then give them a specific time that will be resolved, right? Or if you can resolve, if they list 5 things at the end of the day or 7 things, if you can resolve one or two, resolve the one or two, keep the tickets open, and tell them you would escalate to the appropriate team that will fix 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're able to manage the situation, right? So let's go to number 30. We are getting to the end of almost getting to the end of the questions. So number 30 says, give an example of a situation where you had to learn a new technology quickly. Give an example of a situation where you had to learn a new technology quickly. So that sometimes, let's say probably your company uses a particular ticketing system, and then because of the workload and the efficiency, they needed to swap to another ticketing system. So in that case, it is a new ticketing system. You need to quickly jump on it and learn how to work with that ticketing system, right? So when they ask you this kind of question, they want you to demonstrate your adaptability and a willingness to learn. They don't want you to be rigid. Some will say, I'm used to this ticketing system, and they start complaining every day, every day. But whenever you have a question like this, they want to test your adaptability and now you're willing to learn new things, right? So when my company adopted a new ticketing system, I quickly familiarized myself with it throughout through a self-paced training, right? Yeah. 31. Tell me about a time you received constructive feedback and how you handled it. Yeah. That sometimes you help a user, they'll tell you thank you, they're happy, blah 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 blah. They even go because after you resolve a ticket, there's another email that comes to the user for a feedback. Sometimes you have users go back to that email and do a feedback, of how you supported them and how they loved it. And sometimes some users could talk to your manager that they were not happy in a way you handled the situation. You handled it properly, but maybe it took more time than what they expected. So whenever they ask this kind of questions, they want you to show that you welcome feedback and you use it to improve. If a user reports you to your manager that you took 3 hours instead of fixing something for 45 minutes, you should take that as a feedback and learn on how can you improve on resolve this issue um, earlier in a lower time rather than taking that much time. So whenever a recruiter asks you this question, what they want to do is learn if you welcome feedback and how you are able to use it to improve. So for example, my manager suggested I improve my ticket documentation. I applied the feedback, enhancing my accuracy and efficiency. I moved to 32. Describe a situation where you had to explain complex technical issues to a non-technical person. Of course, use the STAR method, highlight clarity and effective communication skills. For example, I explained the VPN issue by comparing it to a locked door requiring key, making it easier for the user to understand. You know this already? 33, what do you know about our company and its services? So this is more focused on the company. The company you want to go and work that is interviewing, you need to read about their company. So they can ask you questions like, what do you know about our company and their IT services? Research their infrastructure, services, and goals. So for example, I research your recent projects, including your cloud migration initiative. Just gives you an upper edge that you are interested in the company. That's why you've come, right? 34, why do you want to work for our organization specifically? Why have you chosen to work with us? They want to check if, you know, they want to check if you have a genuine interest in the company values and mission. Or maybe you're just applying for a work, you're just in the work. Sometimes some people actually want to work in specific organizations because of some reason. It could be because of their initiative or because of their target audience or because of the past work they've done. If you relate straight with your values, you need to state it whenever this question is asked. So, for example, I admire your commitment to innovation and customer-centric IT services. 35, how do you see yourself contributing to our IT service goals? Nobody wants to employ somebody that won't contribute, of course, to their goals. So now they need, if you have studied the company very well, you would have an idea of what they are doing, what they've done, and the projects they're undertaking, and why they need, for example, a service desk person. Right. So if you have done those research, then align your skills with the company objective. That's all, and explain it. So, for example, here you've got with my strong troubleshooting and customer service skills, I aim to enhance resolution time and contribute higher to the customer satisfaction scores. Yeah. 36. Have you researched our company's recent projects or initiatives? Still on company. Demonstrate proactive research by referencing some of it. If you have actually read about the company, about some of their timelines, their values, their core values, it is easier for you to explain and tell them how you align to their values. This gives the recruiter that this person is actually interested in our company, and it also gives you like a upper edge. For example, yes, I read about your recent cloud migration initiative, which aligns with my expertise in the cloud support and security. Yeah, if you have made it to this 36th question 36, then it shows that you have a great interest in service desk role. So what I'm going to do is, after I give you the 37th question, I'm going to give you an offer. If you have made it only to this time in this video, then I'll give you an offer that would help you in case you are looking at, starting your career or moving to a higher career, maybe like a senior role or a manager role, or you're moving to another team. So I have an offer that helps you, put yourself together, your expertise, your professionalism to help you get into that role, right? So let's move straight to, and if you have not followed me at this stage, you still have the chance to click the subscribe button. So whenever I drop any updates or videos regarding this, you will be the first to get notified. So 37, what makes you a good fit for a company's service desk team? What makes you a good fit for our company's service desk team? So, what do they want to hear from you? Combine your skills and company's value. Combine your skills with the company's values. Boom, and you'll kill this question. So, for example, my strong skills, customer focused approach, and adaptability align perfectly with your IT company's mission of delivering reliable IT services. You can put it in your own way, your own English, your own explanation, but then the tip here is that you must combine your skills with the company's value. Yeah, thank you for making it to this part of the video. And then if you want to start a career in IT service desk, right, from wherever you are, just click on the www.learnservicedesk.com and I'll see you there. Thank you very much for watching up to this time, and see you in my next video. Bye.